and we're really happy to have you all here in spite of the weather we're having. We also have a number of people on the webinar, so thanks for everybody that's joining us on the webinar. We're happy to have you as well. So tonight, what we plan on doing is taking the first bit of time to share with you some of the initiatives that are happening within the Office of Early Childhood, and provide you with an overview of our office and the work that we do. And then what we're really excited about tonight is to hand it over to you to gather feedback on areas where you have successes that you would really like to see replicated in other parts of the state, and areas where you have faced challenges and how we can better support you in those challenges. So I would say probably about the first 30 will be on our overview, and then we're going to break into small groups and have you all report out on the feedback that you'll see on the, there's two pieces of paper that you have. One is the agenda, and then the other is the form through which you'll be gathering feedback. So before we begin, we'd like to start with learning who is here tonight. No. So my name is Mary Alice Cohen, and I am the Division Director of the Community and Family Support within the Office of Early Childhood.
Good evening, I'm Erin Loveland. I'm the other Division Director over Early Care and Learning. And maybe we can pass around microphones to folks on the webinar. Okay. So we just want to know who you are and what sector you represent, or what stakeholder group you identify with.
You have some people who snuck in from Boulder.
Oh, heavens forbid.
Okay.
I'm Pete Dawson. I'm a member of our Early Childhood Council board and a retired pediatrician.
I'm Peggy Gabati, and I'm the chair of the DCCBC board, and I'm a family law attorney in Boulder.
I'm Michael Moon. I'm Justice Park, Justice CCB.
I'm Mary Wolf, and I'm also on the Early Childhood Council Boulder and a communication consultant.
Jessica Knight, I'm the programs director at the Early Childhood Council of Boulder County.
I'm Debbie Friedman, and I'm just working on my master's degree in early childhood.
Scott Bright, ABC Child Welfare Centers and Preschool Centers in Will County. We have 19 licensed centers.
Ann Lance, I'm the Executive Director of Teaching Tree Early Childhood Learning Center. We have a center in Fort Collins and in Loveland.
I'm Carolyn Martin. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Education for Kruger School District.
Thad Paul, Child Welfare Director for Lerner County.
Robin Carrier, Life Skills Supervisor for Lerner County.
I'm Stephanie Kern, the Early Intervention Case Manager for the division. Cheryl Cunningham, I'm a licensed family child care provider. My name is Kristen Bolton. I'm an early childhood special ed teacher in St. Brain. I'm also a doctoral student at CU Denver, focusing on early childhood, Big 3, and special ed, and linguistically diverse learners. Christina Taylor, I'm the Executive Director of the Early Childhood Council here in Lerner County.
My name is Harris. I'm a community volunteer. I serve on the board of directors for the Early Childhood Council for Lerner County, and I facilitate the Be Ready campaign.
I'm Sherry Bierman, and I'm the Director of Fort Collins Montessori.
I'm Connie Ruff, and I'm the Director of the Sunshine House Early Learning Academy in Greeley, which is Will County.
I'm Marlene McKenzie, and I'm a child care licensed senior parent in the county.
I'm Dawn Alexander, and I'm with the Will County Department of Public Health and Environment, Health and Safety Specialist. My name is Trish Hoffman. I'm with the Thompson School District, and I have a couple of colleagues on my way as well. I'm Nicole Lamb. I'm with the Colorado Association for the Education of Early Childhood, and I'm sitting on two committees with them: the Advocacy, Policy Committee, and Professional Development.
My name is Readiness, and I am the Vice President for Field Service for Florida Precinct. I'm Anne-Marie Jacobson, and I'm the Program Director for Early Childhood and Elementary Ed at Page Community College on the Loveland campus, and I have the pleasure of serving on the Board of Directors for the CCLC.
I'm Christina Heil, and I manage the State's Advisory Council on Early Childhood, the Early Childhood Leadership Commission. And last but definitely not least are the two individuals who've been responsible for a lot of this work.
Hi, I'm Kristen Lang. I'm with the Office of Early Childhood.
Hi, I'm Amanda Pelletier. I'm with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission.
I think that was everybody. Okay, great. Perfect, thank you. I'm really glad we have such a nice cross section. And then on the web, Amanda, do you want to just kind of synthesize who we have on the webinar?
Sure.
Well, there's only like 40 of them, right?
Yeah, there's 43 people. Okay.
We have 43 people on the webinar. And we have some parents on here. Early childhood instructor, teacher in Fort Collins, Head Start representatives, infant toddler advocates. We have the Early Childhood Council of La Plata on. Early intervention. So it's a very diverse representation.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. La Plata might win the farthest from here, right? Okay, great. Well, I know a lot of you are familiar with the Office of Early Childhood, but I think it's always good to kind of give a little bit of history for any of you who might not be as familiar with the office. Speak up. Okay. All right, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, I was like, where's the clip? Thank you. Okay, so for those of you in the room, we actually have the framework handout. It's a little bit hard to see when we put it up on the slide. But the office was created in 2012. We're celebrating our 7th anniversary in the Colorado Department of Human Services. The idea was that we had early childhood programs and systems kind of scattered throughout different state agencies. We wanted to have a coordinated approach that specifically highlighted a focus on the family and the child, making sure that the children are school ready, that they have safe, stable environments, nurturing environments, and that they have the supports necessary to build resilience. So that's kind of how you can see, and that is actually based on our Colorado Early Childhood Framework as well. And so this is what the office is focused on. And we actually did bring over programs from several state agencies. We had several of the programs scattered throughout the Department of Human Services. We also had programs in healthcare, policy, and finance, as well as the Colorado Department of Public Health. So you'll see that sort of reflected in the two divisions that we're going to talk about today. So the office itself has 3 divisions. 2 of them are programmatic, 1 is operational. So the Division of Operations is where we house our research, data, and evaluation team. It's where our finance and contracts team is as well, and communications. The 2 divisions, so as mentioned, my division is the Division of Early Care and Learning, and then Mary Alice's is the Division of Community and Family Support. And we have different units below those that we'll talk about in detail in a minute. We also house the Director of the Early Childhood Leadership Commission, that's Christina, and we work very closely with that entity. They are our state advisory council. So if you're familiar with Head Start, that's a formal body, and so they act as that formal body for both our federal CCDF and Head Start grants. And then we also are currently in year 1 of a preschool development grant. And so that team is housed within the office as well. Am I talking loud enough? All right, so my division, I think a lot of you are familiar with my division. My division is coordinated with our funding source, which is the Child Care Development Fund. That's a federal fund that focuses on 3 kind of major legs of the stool. One is health and safety for children. One is access to high quality care, and then the other one is quality improvement. So when you look at the units, they very much align with what CCDF wants us to focus on as a state. Not very many states actually house all 3 legs of the stool in one place. It helps us try to be coordinated with our efforts. We try to help support each other's policies. We all kind of understand CCDF very well. That's what my unit is. Many of you probably have noticed that in the last few years, things have changed. Whether you're a licensed provider through licensing, whether you offer child care assistance, which is our subsidy program, or whether you participate in Colorado Shines, the reason that things have changed recently is that in 2014, the federal fund was reauthorized for the first time in almost 20 years. So we went from a fund that was focused solely on economic self-sufficiency for parents, so childcare was just something you needed to get to work, to looking really at how important it is to have that child in a quality environment. So the fund went from self-sufficiency to more of a 2-generation approach. It also became much more prescriptive then around the environments in which children are cared for, in terms of health and safety, in terms of our professionals and how, on how prepared our professionals are to work with children, as well as making sure that we have equal access to high quality care, because we know how important that is in the early years. So it's not your imagination if you think that we've gone through a sea change. We really have. It happens to coordinate with the birth of the office as well. So sometimes it seems like all of this all happened because of the creation of the office, or maybe vice versa. It all happened because of the way in which the federal funds shifted. But if your world is touched at all by my division, you probably have seen quite a shift in focus over the last few years, and that's part of the reason. And now I'll turn it over to Erin.
Thank you. So the Division of Community and Family Support has 3 units which are comprised of 14 different programs. And so the first unit is Early Intervention Colorado, and I think we actually have a few folks here that are deeply involved in early intervention. So early intervention provides the resources and support to children up to age 3 that has special developmental needs. And the early intervention program provides the parents and the caregivers of that child's life with tools to help enhance everyday learning experiences for those children. The second unit is Family Strengthening. Family strengthening, who here is aware of the protective factors, the 5 protective factors? Okay, great. So if you imagine that the 5 protective factors are providing concrete support in times of need, helping parents with resilience, so if they hit a rough spot, they have the skills and the support they need to get back on their feet. It's supporting early childhood development. It's supporting parents to be the best parents they can be and really help them with all the tools they need to be their children's first and most important teacher. And social connections is the fifth one. What we know from families is that if they are connected in their community, that they have a much stronger chance of helping their children to thrive and to be more resilient. So if you think of those 5 protective factors, all of our programs that are in this unit support those outcomes. So it's home visiting. Our home visiting programs are Parents as Teachers, Nurse-Family Partnership, HIPPY, Healthy Steps, and Safe Care. And then we have our Family Resource Centers. Do we have any Family Resource representation here? We have our Family Resource Centers, and then we have our Child Maltreatment Prevention Programs. And so, and I think, make sure, yep, and so all of those are part of our Family Strengthening Program. And then our third unit is about fostering well-being. So this unit is about providing support for teachers and caregivers to help their children develop strong social emotional skills so that they can be successful in the classroom. What we're realizing, especially with recent research on suspension and expulsions, that if we're able to really provide that intense support from in their early years, well before that child enters kindergarten, and helping them to have the skills that they need in building adult child relationships and helping to manage their emotions in a way that they can be successful in the classroom environment. That's what this unit does. So it has Head Start, it has Incredible Years, and it has our early childhood mental health consultation. So those are our 3 units. And then, as everyone in this room is intimately aware, our Governor Polis and the administration feel just passionately about early childhood and about helping every child in Colorado start school ready to learn. So as a result, for the Office of Early Childhood, we are looking at our programs through a different lens now, the Division of Community and Family Support, of how are our programs really helping children to start school ready to learn. And what we know is if a child is hungry, if there's violence in the home, how are they going to be successful with learning math or writing skills, right? So we really need to support the whole family to help nurture that child so they can start school ready to learn. So there's a couple areas that we're working on here. The first is so the word WIG, wildly important goal, those are what we're held accountable for to our senior leadership and to Polis. And so Governor Polis. So we have Erin's division and the community and family support have specific wildly important goals that we have to report every month to senior leadership on how we are progressing. For community and family support, our WIG is increasing the number of communities with the right size access to family support services. So what this means is throughout our state, we have a range of services and a range of access to those services. So that's one piece of the puzzle. And then the other piece of the puzzle is what combination of these different programs, what suite of them help children best be prepared for school. So what we're working on right now is the first step in this process is we're creating 14 programs, school readiness work plans. So we're taking a look at home visiting and our child maltreatment prevention programs and our early childhood mental health programs and demonstrating how they all support the child to start school ready to learn. So that's our first piece, and then we're going to cross that with the PDG needs assessment, which you'll hear more about, to determine what do parents want in terms of helping their children. What environment do those parents and families feel most comfortable accessing that support, and how can we meet that need? And so for some families, it could be that they really prefer the pediatrician's office and Healthy Steps, which pairs an early childhood mental health specialist with a pediatrician to help parents with the support they need in nurturing their child's development. Or it could be in a nurse-family partnership program, or it could be a high-quality early care learning environment. So those are all the different things that we're looking at under this WIG. The second WIG is, let me just jump to the third WIG, and then I'll hand it over to Erin. So the next piece of this equation is what we'd like to do is look at child level data. So taking a look at, we'll partner with a local school district and the agencies within that community that are providing all of these supportive parent education programs, and take a look at how do these programs support a child at the child level data in terms of kindergarten entry assessments. And so then we can take a look at, okay, this is really helping in this area. What parts of our state need more of that particular program? So that's a brief overview of our WIGS right now. And then for the Community Family Support Division, and here's Eric next.
Yeah, this is our third one, and we've never had 2 microphones, so. So for early care and learning, our wildly important goal actually has been this goal for now. I think this is our 4th year of some sort of related goal to improving quality for our early childhood care and education environments. I will say that we are currently just over 25% high quality facilities, licensed facilities in the state of Colorado, which is huge to be able to say that we have a quarter already. Our goal this coming year is to get that up above 28%. So by next July, we have to have that up above 28%. We also have a stretch goal set for 2022, which happens to be the end of the Polis administration's first term, and that is to get us above 34.4%. Rural Colorado actually has more high-quality facilities than the state as a whole, so that's also fantastic. They already have exceeded 28%. I think they're close to 29% high quality if you just look at the rural areas within the state. So the nice thing is we've really seen a huge buy-in to quality. This is also really thanks to our early childhood councils, who we really consider our boots on the ground for this goal, and then just the enthusiastic buy-in from our early childhood providers as well. So in the past, we have actually mirrored this goal, or we tried to marry this goal with other areas around equal access. So we have actually had targeted goals to try to make sure that the children receiving subsidy are served in a high quality environment. And I'm happy to say that over 65% of children receiving subsidy are in a high quality environment for the state. And that's a goal that we continue to focus on. We have also looked at making sure that there's available access to quality throughout the state. So we've actually focused on geographic dispersion of quality to make sure that children receiving subsidy at least have a choice to go to a high quality provider in their area. And that is still a challenge for us, but we did make our goal of making sure that at least 34% of census communities, which are sort of subdivisions of counties, at least 34% of the census communities within the state have at least one high quality provider that accepts CCAP and has a child enrolled. So those are some of the ways in which we try to focus on our WIG. But the governor is very much interested in making sure that we continue to have high quality environments for our kids. Another subset of our wildly important goals is our our rural cabinet. And so the rural cabinet is all of the cabinet agencies within the Polis administration have to have some goal related to school readiness in rural areas of Colorado. And so for us, that is increasing the number of providers who in rural areas who have completed courses in our professional development information system. Because what we know is a lot of the areas of the state do not have access to formal education or they can't afford it. And so we have been trying to increase the number of quality courses available that are free of charge for early childhood professionals. But in particular, we think this is important for early childhood professionals in rural areas. So I have these big numbers. And we started out just over 81,000 course completions by providers who reside or work in a rural community. Our goal by next June 30th, so of July, is to get above 143,000 course completion, so almost double. The only way we're going to do that is if we offer quality courses that are interesting to people. And so that is a priority of the office right now, is to continue to offer those courses and to update and focus on courses like that emphasize social and emotional development in particular. And then we also, as I mentioned, the rural communities are already starting out at a higher level of quality. They have, as I said, almost 28% high quality in the rural areas. Our goal for this year is to get them up to 33.7% high quality providers in the rural areas by the end of June next year. So some pretty ambitious goals, which I think our councils know. Yes. Yes, so that's interesting. So we had a question in the audience about what the definition of a rural community would be. And so really it's anyone who's a non-urban community, if that makes sense. So we have, so the Census Bureau has kind of different designations. There's frontier, rural frontier. There's also like urban center. And so we're talking about anything that isn't a non-urban center. We don't consider, we're not looking at a sub-county level at this particular time. So for instance, Arapahoe County, they are both an urban center and I think rural frontier actually county, depending on where that subdivision of the county lies. We consider Arapahoe County urban. We don't consider that a rural community, even though if you really go to the eastern part of Arapahoe, you really are in rural Colorado. So it's more of a conservative measure, meaning we're not counting every single community as rural that might actually be rural. If that makes sense.
Can you tell me how you're measuring quality when you say 28%?
Sure.
Quality.
Yes. Okay. So there's a question in the audience about how we define quality, essentially. So quality providers are rated providers, so they have to be eligible to be rated, and they have to be a level 3, 4, or 5 in order to be considered in our as high quality provider in our goal. So
in Laramie County, will there be any rural to that or not? And it's the same for Loveland?
So I'm not sure. I can get back to you on whether or not Laramie or Wells are considered rural or not. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I can probably look it up later on tonight and get back to you guys by the end of the night. Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Can I just sort of expand on what Anne-Marie started with the idea of rating, how you label high quality.
Right.
And that's a voluntary system.
Correct.
And so there could be children who are attending a center or a program that has chosen not to engage.
Correct.
But are receiving high quality care.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yes. I would just like to advocate for possible adjustment in verbiage, if I may. That maybe is another conversation.
Right. So that's a good point. So the comment in the audience is that there may be a provider that's offering high quality care that's choosing not to engage in Colorado Shines in the quality rating system, and that's absolutely true. So in some ways, this goal, you could consider this goal to be sort of not encompassing everybody that has access to high quality, but it's the bare minimum, right? Or it's what we think is the base level. Our wildly important goals have to be measurable. So that's really the only way that we're able to kind of set these percentages and have like a measure that we can report totally. So, but I completely agree. We know there are a lot of providers out there who've chosen not to rate, or they're waiting and they're trying to go through a national accredited body. Once they go through that accreditation, they can crosswalk into Colorado Shines. But absolutely, we know that there's high quality care out there, and there's reasons why they might not be engaged. I would love to hear from this audience on why you think there's some of those reasons. That's something we'd love to hear back from. Yeah. Also, I want to also highlight a couple of the other rural cabinet goals, because This really isn't just on paper. This is really a focus that the governor is putting a lot of pressure on the agencies to do. So there's some other pretty innovative things going on. For the Department of Local Affairs, they have community development block grants that are available to local government agencies. And so what they have done is reduced the match from 50% to 25% if a local community is interested in investing in childcare. So whether that's building a childcare facility or upgrading a childcare facility. So those community development block grants are now something that DOLA has decided to highlight and focus on early childhood. We are also working with the Department of Local Affairs to develop a toolkit for developers and communities to explain sort of the physical requirements to be licensed. So we know that there's zoning requirements that are local and prior requirements that are local, but at least explaining how to go about doing those things, as well as all of the things around minimum square footage, ideal situations or ideal environments for children, playground safety, all of that. So that's a toolkit that we're working with them on that will be disseminated statewide, so that communities who are thinking they might want to invest in these kinds of infrastructure have a nice roadmap to do so. For the Department of Labor and Employment, we spent about the last 18 months working with the Workforce Development Council to help map out the early childhood profession. And they were amazed at how complicated it is and how many different pathways there are. So they did everything. They looked at assistant early childhood teachers. They looked at early childhood mental health consultants. They looked at coaching. They looked at directors. So that is actually going to be on their website soon as a toolkit. They have several of these for different sectors, but it's a way for career counselors, workforce development centers, et cetera, to help people kind of map out where they might want to start and where they might want to go with their career in early childhood. So that is something that we worked on for about 18 months with that group. And then in addition, the Department of Labor and Employment is looking at ways in which they can help provide toolkits or for communities interested in things like apprenticeships or other workforce development strategies. So stay tuned for that as well. But it really is something they are required, they meet monthly, and they really are constantly trying to talk about all of the issues related to school readiness and early care learning, whether it's an economic issue or not. The point is the governor wants everyone focused on school readiness. So I think most of you by now are aware that the governor has expanded full access to full-day kindergarten to all children, and that also freed up an additional 5,000 e-care slots. So those are slots through our Colorado Preschool program that can be used for children with at-risk, any sort of thing that puts them at risk, particularly if they're low income, experiencing homelessness, have developmental delays, etc. So that is great for our world, and now we know that almost every school district is now able to offer full 3-day kindergarten. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen because I start to lose my voice, and she's better talking about our latest efforts around Senate Bill 63.
All right, good evening, everyone. So Senate Bill 63 is entitled Concerning a Strategic Action Plan to Address Infant and Family Childcare Home Shortages in Colorado. Oh, you know what? Erin, can I steal the clicker back?
Oh, yes, you can.
So what the bill says at a very high level is it requires the Department of Human Services and, in this case, the Office of Early Childhood, in consultation with the Early Childhood Leadership Commission and various stakeholders to draft a strategic plan addressing the declining availability of both infant care and family child care homes. And that plan is due to the legislature on December 1st, 2019. So this passed just this last legislative session. And the reason it came about is because legislators were concerned by the trends that they saw in the availability both of family child care homes and licensed infant care. So we know this trend with family child care homes is a national trend. It's definitely happening in Colorado too. I know we have at least one family child care home provider, so you may have seen that in your community or your network. But what we've seen is from 2010 to 2018 is a decline in every single county in the state of Colorado of licensed family child care home providers. Most of those counties show a decline of 50 to 100% of family child care home providers over that 8-year period. At the same time, we saw a decline of 7,000 licensed infant slots in the state, and those corresponded directly with that decline in licensed family child care homes. So we saw licensed capacity in centers remain relatively stagnant, where the capacity in family child care homes dropped. And so this is concerning for a number of reasons. We know family child care homes are a very important part of the WIGS delivery system, especially in a state where in certain areas and rural communities in particular, and some mountain resort communities where the cost of real estate is just incredibly high for centers, family child care homes are the only economic option. Even in communities where they just make up a part of the system, they're an important part of that system for our families who work non-traditional hours, who need or want a smaller environment for their child. And related to infant care, we need a safe, stable, quality place for our infants to be cared for, whether that's in a licensed home or a licensed center. And so both of these trends were concerning to the legislature. So we are tasked in the legislation with figuring out why is this happening, and then creating a plan to address those trends and reverse those trends. And so the way that we've gone about fulfilling this legislative requirement is in terms of studying the reasons why, we've taken a couple approaches. So one is utilizing the preschool development grant process, which you'll hear more about from Mary Alice in a moment, to do some studies. So if you're a licensed provider, you probably got at least one survey. I know people have been surveyed a lot. And so that will, so that addressed, we embedded some Senate Bill 63 specific questions into those tools. So that was a provider survey, also parent surveys to understand what they want in terms of care, depending on different ages of their children. We also engaged in a very deep stakeholder engagement process. And so I'm happy to say, I think Larimer, Weld, and Boulder all had Senate Bill 63 local community conversations. What we did is we started with a couple of community conversations in the Denver metro area, but really wanted geographic diversity in that feedback. And so we created with Raise Colorado, which is a great advocacy organization and a great partner to us, a toolkit that communities across the state could use to hold their own conversations around these issues. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. So yes, so the toolkit to hold community conversations around the states, we were very successful in that process, and with the help of the Governor's Office and the National Governors Association that had prenatal to 3 grant funding, we're able to help support some of those community conversations. So we had 11 funded conversations around the state outside the metro area, and then 5 additional that were not funded through the grant, but gave us that feedback in that set form. So it's an incredibly rich process that helped us identify both the reasons why these trends are happening and come up with potential recommendations to address those plans that can be included ultimately in the strategic action plan. And so out of that process, we had a couple, we had a lot of themes. We had to whittle this down to 3. So this is like, there were 41 main issues identified, so this is not fair. But regulatory burden came up as one, and so this existed both in the case of child care licensing but also in the case of zoning, building code, fire code requirements, what'd you say? HOA, thank you. HOA was one that emerged that wasn't even really on our radar, where it makes it sometimes impossible for especially family childcare home providers to open. Compensation, benefits, and professional development, probably speaking to the choir here, but you all know this is incredibly important work. We do not pay our providers and our teachers enough, but we are increasingly expecting more of them. And we also don't have that benefit structure in place to help support them. And so, you know, this emerged as a major theme. Also, just the lack of public awareness of the value of quality infant care. So this ties into a lot of these issues. Some folks don't think this matters. They don't understand all that brain science that we all talk about and live and breathe every day. They don't know that this is like the most important thing we can do in our society. And that ties into not having the political will to ensure that we're providing a good environment for our providers and teachers. And finally, just the lack of public awareness of the importance and the quality of family child care. So I think that something that emerged was that a lot of folks don't understand that family child care home providers are held to very high standards. They're licensed just like centers are. They provide quality environments, and we heard a lot of, you know, we're not just babysitters, we're professionals. So we have a lot of work to do. So in terms of the timeline for the overall process, we started in July because it's just past the last legislative session and came into effect July 1st. We've been really busy engaging in this data collection and stakeholder outreach. And I should say in the data collection, we've done a couple other independent surveys. So I know some of the Early Childhood Council folks probably just engaged in yet another of those surveys recently. So thank you for that input. And we are now in October, where we have compiled all of this stakeholder feedback, and we created this long list of issues that rose to the top in all these community meetings. As I said, there were 41 issues. For every issue, there was at least one, sometimes like 5 recommendations that came out of the stakeholder process. Has anyone taken the support impact survey? Yay! Okay, we got a couple. And let me tell you, I've heard that the best thing to do on a snowy night is take a Google survey, because it closes tonight. And you want to take it. It takes this entire list of issues and all of these recommendations and asks you, do you support this recommendation? And if it were implemented, would it have you know, high impact, medium impact, or no impact at all? And so we're asking for your feedback. We wanted all of our stakeholders to guide this process. And that survey, if you haven't received it in your email through some venue, is on our website. On the Office of Early Childhood website, there's a For Partners tab. There's a Senate Bill 63 specific section. You can click on that website and take the survey. And don't be scared because it's long. But if a section of an issue doesn't relate to you, if you're not moved by it, just hit next. Just make sure you submit at the end. It does. So that should have gone out through our, didn't we send it through Early Childhood Councils? Yeah. So please go on the website if you didn't receive it and make sure that, and anybody who engaged in those community conversations should have received it by email. Some of them came back bounced, but that was a very small percentage of the overall number. Yes, so this long survey, once we have all of that information, all of the data, we're going to meet with a small stakeholder group with all the folks who are called out in the bill to identify the final recommendations for the strategic action plan. That happens next week. Then we write the plan and then we submit it to the legislature December 1st. So lots of work, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'll kick it back over to Mary Alice. I think this one is working. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Erin. So now we're going to take a moment to discuss the preschool development grant. And this is, I believe, one of our last sections, and then we'll be turning it over to you. So So the project period for the preschool development grant is, it began December 31st, 2018, and it ends February 2020. We received $5.8 million through the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for a number of things. First of all, to conduct a statewide needs assessment, and then to develop a strategic plan, all while working on enhancing parent choice and expanding access to the current mixed delivery system. Next slide, Erin. Sure, so there are, these are the primary goals for the preschool development grant. The first is about aligning and coordinating systems, which you've heard a bit about already this evening. The second is about innovating service delivery. The third is around maximizing family knowledge and engagement, increasing meaningful and equitable access, strengthening business practices, which is providing support for early childhood councils, family resource centers, child care providers on business practices, and then finally improving the quality of the environment and the workforce. So those are the buckets of the preschool development grant. Tomorrow morning we have the PQA webinar that is happening, where we are going to hear from the Colorado Health Institute on the initial findings of the needs assessment, and then we'll hear from Early Milestones on an introduction to some of the ideas about the strategic plan for the preschool development grant. And then we have 4 weeks to submit the grant for years 2 to 4. So there'll be just a flurry of activity over the next 4 weeks to pull together all of our strategies based on the extensive number of focus groups and surveys gathering feedback from around the state. So we've reviewed 24, in regard to the needs assessment, there's so many needs assessments already happening all around the state. So our first task was to review 24 state and local needs assessments. And then we did focus groups, 19 focus groups. Our family survey response, we received 3,404 family survey responses, and we had 19 key informant interviews. So the key theme I hope you're hearing tonight is that we really need your feedback, and we're leaning heavily on all of you to guide us in this process. So this is what's happened so far. Then tomorrow with our PQA webinar, we'll be able to gather more, there'll be an opportunity to gather more information from all of you. And then the second piece is based on this needs assessment, we then take it to the strategic plan. And the strategic plan will prioritize the activities to improve the areas in our state where there's limited access, or we just need to improve services for low-income and disadvantaged children living in Colorado. Same thing with our strategic plans. So many of our communities already have strategic plans in place, and we have various statewide ones. So what we did is we reviewed 41 of the state and local strategic plans to make sure that we are aligned in what we're working on, and then we did additional feedback on this. So our strategic plan will be available January 2020. This is information on PQA tomorrow. And Christina, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
We have the cards.
One of the little cards in the back has the takeaways that we hope that you'll engage in following tonight's presentation. So make sure to grab one of those. By holding one up, thank you, I appreciate that. Looks like this. And one of the bullet points on here gives you a website where you can go to register for that webinar tomorrow morning. So make sure you grab one of these on your way out.
Okay, so now we're ready to shift to the meat of tonight, where we really want to focus our energy is to gather feedback from all of you. So how we would like to do this is at your table.
Well, it's up here. It's up here.
Oh, it's up there. Sorry. But anyway, this page. And you'll see there are 3 questions. One is what are successful strategies in your community that can be shared and replicated across the state? And I know there's so much innovation that is happening in Larimer County, Boulder, Estes. There's just, so we really want to capture what you have found successful. And then the second piece is what are the challenges and what should the state's role be in addressing these challenges and opportunities? And how can CDHS better support you in your work? This is the time, we're in such a critical period right now as we're launching all these different initiatives. This is the time where we really need your feedback to help guide us in our efforts. So what has worked really well in the other forums that we've conducted in the last couple of weeks is to have you start in small groups, sharing amongst your table and writing down, capturing not just the group feedback, but really your individual thoughts, concerns, ideas on the paper that we provided. We'll be collecting the hard copy at the end of the evening to put together into all of our other results. Also, Kristen will be taking, and Amanda will be taking notes on a conversation that will follow. So the first step is to talk within your group, and then we'll take the rest of the time to have you share out to all of us on the key points that you came up with at your table. So that's the plan. Would it be okay if we asked maybe this table to join up here and maybe this table to join this table so that we have enough at each table? And how are we doing on time? Do we want to say maybe 10 minutes? Okay, well, because we want to save enough time. So 10 minutes at your table, and then we're going to pass the microphone around and engage in conversation. Are there any questions before we begin? Okay, thanks, everyone.
Does anybody need a pen or a piece of paper? Okay, great. Because we will collect all of these at the end. So even if you don't get a chance to talk out loud, we'd love to hear your written feedback. And then for those of you on the webinar, we sent the form out, and so you all can start typing in your responses. That will be great.
So let's actually gather back and begin our report out. So we'll keep this moving quickly because we only have 20 minutes. And our goal is to also gather all of the information by the hard copy forms. So let's start with question number 1, and we'll just go around to each of the tables and do question number 1, and then we'll combine question 2 and 3 together. So starting at this table with question number 1. Okay. Could you please share and speak loudly so they can hear you on the webinar too of successes in your county that you would like to see replicated?
Yeah, so of these successes that we came up with, CCAP rates to providers, it was increased. So, you know, if you're a high level Shines rating, you got the full reimbursement rate for CCAP, which, you know, opened the doors, I feel like, for CCAP families. We also think that's like a challenge. So some of these, you know, it's a great ideas, but can be a challenge as well because there's a huge CCAP waiting list. And so it eats all the money to go to providers, but then the folks can't get access to it. So that's hard. We also in Larimer County have a few things going on for workforce with a mentorship program that we have. So, for example, my center has 2 mentors trained where there's through Front Range Community College, they're mentors. They can go through our program and get paid while they're working, and then the Early Childhood Council supports them to get their schooling completed, and they can get it done quicker. So it's like somebody can explain it better. Yeah. So more details on that, but that's a great thing for us to get folks into the workforce, and then also looking at another piece I'll have you share about.
Okay, so there's a career pathway program that District 6 in Greeley has put together with Ames. And we're really excited about that because it offers ECE in early childhood. It tracks students towards their ECT. And so by the time they graduate from high school, if they've also gotten their hours, they are ECT qualified. And so we're working really hard to develop, build, and encourage kids to get through that period.
And then I'll share one more and pass it on because we don't want to hog it all, but one huge piece that has happened in Larimer County as well is partnerships with the school district for teaching strategies gold. So a private provider shares a license with the district. And so all of our teaching strategies gold information is held in the district so that it can be passed on to kindergarten. So it's very streamlined, and it's really a pilot with a few providers right now, but it's awesome because they pay and they help with teacher training and that kind of thing to keep all of our data streamlined.
That sounds like an amazing pilot. Thank you. Those are great.
You get that.
Ours are a little broader. You want answers to questions? Which questions are we addressing?
Number 1, all the way around, then we're going to go 2 and 3 together.
Okay,
So
thank you. We have 2 things for which we can take credit. One is that we've had a program of infant parent psychotherapy combined with public health nursing for the past 35 years. It served hundreds of families, and there's been no deaths. It got started originally because of a death. Secondly, so it's a plug for infant parent psychotherapy on a broad basis. The second one is we've had an ABCD partnership in this county, and it's increased the collaboration and improved the follow-up of referrals for developmental delays.
Thank you. And question number 1 for this table.
I can explain a little bit more about the mentor project that Anne teased. So we at the council have a grant through Early Milestones that allows us to support prospective providers by pairing them with a program. That program has a mentor teacher trained, and then that mentor teacher supports the student. And the student also is paired with Front Range Community College, and we pay for their classes. So we're providing multi-pronged support to get individuals into the field. We think that the mentorship piece really helps with the uncertainty and the burden of becoming licensed and learning how to be an effective child care provider. It increases our partnerships across the community and attempts to make that a more streamlined process. So that's been a success so far. Another success that we see in Larimer County is targeted outreach for family child care recruitment. So it's not a blanket recruitment strategy that we employ, but rather we host specific events for family child care recruitment. We have a specific marketing strategy specifically for them. And we work really hard to engage them. Obviously, we're still falling short, and that's across the state. Our quality support coaching is not unique to our county, but I think that it's a really solid support that we provide to childcare to keep people in the field and to increase quality. And then there's one on here that I didn't hear. So we also have the Colorado Shines is a very supportive program for people as they move through the process.
So I just want to do a little addendum. I really think for you, the office, I really think you should look to the counties. You don't have to reinvent much of anything. There's so much going on in the counties in this room and the counties across the state that I urge you to don't do another survey, don't ask for more input, but take these ideas from the counties and make them statewide. We're doing extraordinary work, you all, in counties. And I really ask you to please look at this work and incorporate it across the state. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you very much for that feedback. Table number, question number 1.
Table number. I'm gonna take the easy way out, honestly, because the same things that we had with some of the bids that we had there was the apprenticeship program, for lack of a better term, the CCAP rates. I think in Larimer, there is a lot of coalition activity around in lots of places that are focused similarly. And there's also, we recently just received a grant from DHS to do some collaboration specific to child welfare and child protection, which also do interactive MOE, so there's great opportunity. So it's a great place that's very focused in a lot of partnerships. The challenge is with those partnerships, there's limited resources. It creates that rub or the competitiveness, for lack of a better term, when everybody's competing for that same dollar.
I just want to add on the mentorship program, the Early Milestone Grant. One of the things FRCC was able to do, because we partnered with the ECCLC before the grant was written, that we were able to pitch it together, that I, as the program director of Park Range, could adjust the scheduling of the classes and the cost of the textbooks and the resources and all of that. I could take care of that on my end, so engaging with higher education in that way is really important.
It sounds like an incredible collaboration.
Oh, sure. We got a lot of responses online, so thank you to everybody on the webinar for submitting those. We've captured all of them. I just wanted to read one here. Collaboration between early intervention and then the special education preschool programs. Continuously working on this transition to ensure it's a smooth process for kids and families who need developmental supports with delays and disabilities. It's a great program.
Excellent. Question number 1.
We represent mostly Larimer County as well, and I would just agree with all the other speakers tonight. The only thing we kind of mentioned about beyond that was the partnership in terms of training between the school districts and the council and members of the council. We do a lot of training in the pyramid model that we try to do with private providers as well as our school district providers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, ditto. The ECCLC has been very supportive, and the CCAP rate, and
We have a great resource. Family Child Care has a great resource that we have a network of providers that work together and support each other. We have our own kind of mentorship there.
So I don't know if I maybe misunderstood the question. Zoning might sound like a challenge versus successful, but where I wanted to flip that over is to cities like Loveland. So if statewide could copy Loveland, because I came from Evans and Weld and moved to Berthoud in Larimer, so I've experienced this in 2 different counties where the differences per city is so astonishingly different. It really makes it difficult to become licensed, to remain licensed when they're capping you so far below your licensed capacities, you can't earn a living off of, especially when you have your own children. Under 3 years, if they take all my money-making spots. And so then you cap me at 6 where they all count. I'm down to 3 spots, and that's it. And that's in Berthoud. So in Evans, I was down to 5, so that's 2 spots. So we moved here from Minnesota to have a large license, my mom and I can't even open a large license in either city we've lived in so far. And so if we had been a couple miles up into Loveland, you should have called me. I know. It's following me.
And the council was big in getting them to change the.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
Yeah, so Lisa Sauter had been like a godsend. So thank her very much at the council for that. But yeah, if we could make that statewide, copy Loveland.
So let's actually transition now to question number 2, and we can keep it at this table. So we're going to now transition to discussing about challenges and how we can better support you in those challenges. And we have, so let's just do like 1 challenge per table. I know. However, we'll capture all of the challenges in the piece of paper.
Written them down.
The state needs to tell HOAs home child care is always allowed in this state.
kind of stories because they're dictatorial, they harass you half to death, and they need to know the state has control over them.
Thank you. Thank you. And we don't have time right now, but Kristen has looked at other states and how they worked on this issue, and California has a really interesting policy. It's not policy, legislation. So it'll be interesting to take a look later at that when we have more time.
We also had a few that we'd love to share at some point, but one of them was the lack of what's called qualified to be in a classroom setting. We have like paraprofessionals that have bachelor's degrees in alternate fields that we can't keep hired. They can't stay in our system because they don't meet the criteria for childcare teacher. Another example is we have a nurse with a doctorate who's not allowed to be alone with the child because she doesn't have the correct criteria as set out by the state. And so what we'd love to have is a little bit of flexibility, or at least some support with grandfathering people in, or having a grace period while they get some of those classwork under their belt.
Oh, sorry. So I'm hearing you tonight. We're going to settle on pay. And we focused a lot on homes at this table. And that it needs to be subsidized, that they need to get benefits, that many home providers qualify for public assistance. If they just are not making the money, and when the economy is good, they go somewhere else. We do get more providers when the economy is bad. As soon as the economy improves, we lose them. And I just got to stick one more in there, and that's the isolation factor for family childcare homes. They don't have the support that people have in centers. No one comes and gets a kid out of their house when they're misbehaving, like they take them out of their room when they're misbehaving. So it's the isolation and the money.
So, yeah, thank you.
So we talked about the credentialing process, that needs to be cleaner and more equitable. We have kind of a point system that doesn't work well. There are people who have graduate level degrees that can't get good points in the EIS, and we don't need that. And we talked about family child care homes, why they're crosswalked into Colorado Shines if they're nationally accredited at a level 3, but child care centers get crosswalked into a level 4. I think that communicates to family child care homes how we value them. Yeah.
I have something really targeted to say, and that is that we face a really serious funding gap. Any of us who are either districts or other community providers of services for children who have identified needs. And so that rests with the state count occurring on December 1st. So we can count all the children we have at that time who have an IEP. The problem is that we all know that there are going to be C2B transitions and other transitions of children who have needs into the program in the remaining months. And so in our district, that's typically between 50 and 60 children. It's almost $250,000 annually that we provide services for completely unfunded. And it will break us eventually. Truly.
From our group, we became aware recently of the collaborative effort on the part of the Health and Human Services Directors of the 7 metropolitan counties. They've all agreed on a proposal and a plan, and they're looking for funding to rethink their philosophy about child protection, join in with public health, reform their services, join their services, and prevent child neglect. And they're looking for big dollars. This is a big undertaking, and you guys should work with them.
Yes, that was recently brought to my attention. We're actually bringing it to SUBPAC and PAC to discuss at our next meeting. So that's great to hear from you. Can we take some time now for anyone that has additional challenges that have not been cited yet that they would like to add with the time that we have?
Oh, yeah, we have on.
Okay.
Several comments online just to make sure we're connecting with them around compensation for the workforce. And then a couple actually called out specific tax credits or options around that. And then also statewide campaign or marketing around taxpayers contributing to the child care contribution tax credit program as well. So just tax credits as an option came up several times. Just real quick, public announcement, I guess. There was a tax credit that was passed this past session that will allow credentialed early childhood professionals to get a tax credit up to $1,500 on their income taxes. That will start in tax year 2020, so it would be your filing of 2021. So it's between 500 and 1,500, right? So it's a tiered system.
And it doesn't matter if you're a family or a.
As long as you're a credentialed professional, right? So we are actually cleaning up that credential and trying to align it better with licensing. And part of the impetus for doing that very quickly is because of this tax credit going into place. So
That's only if it's back home.
no, this is in place already. You do have to be, I believe you have to be level 2 provider. There's some caveats, but we'll be rolling out a public awareness campaign after the first of the year, which is giving you a little snippet.
You asked for additional challenges that we had listed. We in the council worked hard to engage a lot of our family child care providers across the various municipalities. And one of the resounding barriers that we heard from those providers is the licensing barriers. There's too many classes. It's super arduous. It's a complicated process. From a lot of the providers that we had in the field for 20 to 30 years, they said if they had to go through it today, there's no way they could do it. They continued to stay in the field because they were already there and they were invested in it. But if they had decided to pursue it as a career at this age or at this time in our licensing environment, it would have been an absolute no. And I think that that's extremely telling for how difficult it is for providers to get licensed. And I feel like there has to be a simplification of that process at the state level.
Is that homes or centers? Homes. Okay.
Great. Any, would you like to add another one, and then we'll wrap up so we stay on time. Thank you.
The state has done good with PDS as far as putting excellent trainings on there. But when it takes 12 weeks to get your stuff uploaded, it's not good, because that's what we talk about in the lunchroom is how slow. I mean, take some of your $5.8 million, hire a couple more people and get our stuff in.
Or modernize our system.
Anything else? Okay, I know there's a lot, and so we're looking forward to gathering your feedback. And I think the next slide has.
It does stay in touch.
Yes, but before we say that, you had mentioned about the survey closing at midnight tonight. So actually, we just learned that we're going to be able to keep it open until noon tomorrow. And so that will hopefully, because we'll probably all be exhausted tonight, so maybe first thing in the morning, for those of you who haven't had a chance to do that, you should provide that feedback before noon tomorrow.
So make sure you grab one of those little cards, and then did we post, Amanda, on the webinar, the URL for the survey? Okay, all right. So before noon tomorrow.
And then the next thing is to, for those of you that have not subscribed to our newsletter, there's such a flurry of activity happening right now. That's a great way to stay in touch, as well as the Preschool Development Grant newsletter. Erin, do you want to share about PQA?
Sure. So tomorrow, that is tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, we're going to be presenting at the Program Quality and Alignment Subcommittee, which is part of our Early Childhood Leadership Commission. It's pretty exciting. We're going to be able to share some of the themes, some of the strategies and objectives that have emerged through the needs assessment and are going to be included in our strategic plan. All of that will be informing our application
for the next hopefully, for funding for the next 3 years. So it should be pretty exciting. A lot of what you've been talking about tonight are things that we have heard and we're trying to address. So if you can tune in, that would be fantastic.
And then before we wrap up, there's food in the back that we would love for you to take home to your families. We don't want it to go to waste. And so please don't be shy and pack up whatever you need to take with you. And I just want to thank you for your time tonight and for the collaboration that is happening in your communities and the innovation, and for sharing both the successes and the challenges that you're experiencing. We're very grateful for your time. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.